If you have this book, the way we started and the way CK2 starts it are going to be a little bit different. He is starting from a position and he slides his way out. Obviously, it's a little more demanding on the adductor muscles. But also, if you've got a non-stick floor or you're wearing shoes, it's very difficult to slide your way out there. So if you have this book, just know that he's going to start it a little bit differently than the way that we do. Although before, in the ancient times, we didn't have these mats and it was all tiled. And so with cotton-soled shoes, we did slide our way out. So I'm going to do this a couple of times with the points that we don't always get to talk about in class, and then I'll compare it with the book. Like you've heard me say, get your tuck. This is not about stretching these muscles so much as it's about opening the crease, your quad. You'll hear in Tai Chi we talk about the quad. Well, the quad is hips, but really it's the hip socket. It's that hip joint. So it's about relaxing the actual kind of connective tissue in between, this joint here. To me, that's always been helpful to keep in mind, because otherwise I just feel like, oh, I'm stretching my hamstrings and my inner thigh muscles. You are doing that, but there's another component to this. So, we start with our feet together, 45-degree angle. And you'll see I have my tuck. What I mean is not having my tuck, I don't have it. So keep this, which means you must keep your knees bent. And then as you step out, I'm going to keep my hips at this 45-degree angle as I work myself out. I know this is a lot of information at once, so just bear with me here. Another thing to consider is I'm trying to keep my feet at that 45-degree angle as I work myself out. A very common thing is for this back foot to turn straight and sometimes even past that. Once it gets to that range, you're not really keeping the alignment of the posture. So, tuck, feet 45 degrees. Try to keep the hips and the feet at that alignment. Understanding that if you get super far out, it's natural. The back foot is they're gonna rotate out just a little bit, but it's proportional to how far out in your stance you go. And I'm punching. That's about it for me. As I get here, I'm not shifted on the back leg, I'm not shifted on the front leg. I am equally spaced. My weight is sinking in the middle. I'm rounding out with both my knees, so I'm not collapsing them in. I'm still trying to rotate them out. And I'm going to keep my hips at this alignment as I turn my shoulders and my head towards the front. This is another one where it's optimal if you can see this in person, because you can kind of walk around it in a 360 and look down on it, because there's sort of an S shape that happens with the lower body, which is really hard to explain where I am to where you are. But that's a product of the knees out. And you gradually push yourself back off. And other side. Try it on your own, keeping those feet 45-degree angle. Keep your tuck. Keep the hips at a 45-degree angle. If you can't go as far down with all those things in place, that's okay. With practice comes improvement. I don't know if you notice. I definitely notice. I can't reach out quite as far on this side. Most of you, if you train here, you know I've had extensive knee surgeries, and this right knee took a lot of work, and so my hip is tighter on this side. So this is a harder side for me. And finish off. Let's see what else. No, that's the most of it. Feet 45 degrees. Keep that tuck. Round the knees out. Oh, yeah. See the difference between keeping my hips in this direction and turning my shoulder versus sometimes people will do this. See the difference? It straightens out my back leg if I try to turn my hips to the front. So keep my hips at 45 degrees, turn my shoulders. Hopefully you can kind of see the difference. Correct. Not correct. I also lose my tuck when I do that, and I feel a pinch in my mid-back. And push it off. Held that one for a long time. Ideally, when you get out as far as you can, it's an 8 to 12 second hold, and then you push back off. This one, you kind of scoot yourself out, switch sides, do the other side, you alternate back and forth, whereas Hit the Tiger, it's out and back multiple times on the same side. Take a minute, practice that on your own. If it's obviously going to be too much to incorporate everything I just said, but pick one or two things. Tuck, foot alignment, hip alignment, pick a couple, practice on your own, and then we'll compare it with the book. And I know in class sometimes it can feel like a competition. I have to get lower, and you will, but it's, as with all postures in Tai Chi, it's more beneficial, more helpful to your training, and easier on your body in a preservation kind of way to do the moves correctly and go to a higher limit. Like I can't push this any farther, but your alignment is correct. Then with repetition, practice, and time, most of the time, obviously if there's a serious structural situation, that's a separate issue. But all things being equal, with time and correct alignment, your flexibility and your endurance and your ability to make the stance lower or wider or bigger will come. So try to temper that competitive spirit that we all have of like, I should be doing more. Just keep it correct. Go to your limit. Don't push through that limit. And then with time, you'll be able to reap those benefits. I definitely have to consider that for myself. I don't know which camera to point these on. I might do two cameras here. So what I want to talk about here is, so he gets into it a little differently. He starts with his feet apart because he's sliding into the posture versus stepping out like we are. So it's a little bit different when he starts. But he makes a point to talk about how important it is for his feet to stay at 45 degrees. And as he gets way out there, this back foot has turned out a little bit, but it's still facing inward as much as possible. Notice his hip alignment and how relaxed his shoulders are. It's very easy to tense up on this one, and relaxation is really what we're trying to go for, even though we're working pretty hard. Okay. Everything he said is pretty much what I had said. The purpose of this is not to go as low as possible, but to hold your lowest position while maintaining key details: a relaxed body with tucked in pelvis, bent knees, the feet flat on the ground, and the weight on the heels and outside edges of your feet. That said, though, don't let the ball of your foot roll up. You want to keep contact with the heel, outside edge, and the ball of the foot. So this triangle support system, if this were the bottom of my foot. If you focus too much on the outside edge, this foot can kind of roll up and you lose contact. So always think also making contact with that ball of the foot. It's also important. Return to the starting position by drawing up the front foot a few inches at a time. This posture can be repeated one or two more times, alternating with right tiger, left side. So switch back and forth. All right, with that, let's do it one more time together on each side. If you can, think about inching your feet out just a little, an inch or two more with this one. If you can't, think about trying to sink your weight lower in the middle, regardless of how far out your feet go. And pick a side and go. The benefit to doing this a few repetitions on each side is usually after a couple, you will find your flexibility has improved even just in one go with this posture. and push off. And other side. So for me here, because this hip is, my right hip is cranky, I'm trying to sink, allow my weight to sink down a little bit more, which I can do after all these repetitions. It's less uncomfortable. I have a little bit better range as I sink. And push off. All right. Your hips should feel nice, warm, and open. And if there's no questions about this, obviously if there are, let us know. And next class on Thursday, we will probably move on to Phoenix Spreads Wings. And with that, we will bow out of our black sash training. Let's do our life skill. Focused mind. Path of self-mastery requires a focused mind. A focused mind sees no obstacles. Path of self-mastery requires a focused mind. A focused mind sees no obstacles. Path of self-mastery requires a focused mind. A focused mind sees no obstacles. With that, black sash training dismissed. Thanks for being here. Go get a drink of water.